So we've talked about how poetic technique and figurative language are important to a poem, and now we're going to talk about how graphic elements influence a poem. So the first thing which we've talked about some is stanzas. Stanzas are the divisions of a poem. They consist of at least 2 lines and can be more than 2 lines. Authors use stanzas to divide ideas and thoughts and also to create a certain appeal and appearance to their poem. For instance, it's as if an author's writing a paper. They'll have their introduction, their body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2. It's just like that. They'd have one stanza for their intro to their poem, one stanza for body paragraph main idea 1, one stanza for main idea 2, and so on. Or it's like Shakespearean sonnets where they follow a specific structure. Now, the lines of a stanza often have something that ties them together and makes them similar, such as a common meter, rhyme, and the number of lines that a stanza is composed of. As you can see in this poem, it follows a structure of the first 5 stanzas consisting of 3-lined stanzas, and then the last one consisting of 4 lines. So this adds structure and flow to the poem. Another important factor of the graphical elements of poetry are capital letters. Unlike writing essays or any other type of writing form, poetry does not have to follow the traditional quote-unquote normal and accepted rules of capitalization. You have a little bit more freedom. For instance, you normally would have to capitalize, you'd always capitalize just the start of the sentence, but in poetry, we'll see how you have a little more freedom, and there is one important capitalization rule you have to follow. In poetry, the first letter of each line is capitalized. So if you run down the whole left side of the poem, you'll see that every line starts with a capital letter. Oftentimes, a poet will also capitalize important words throughout the poem to emphasize their meaning. And this capitalization of words helps the poet create a more attractive and creative poem. This is why poetry is considered more of an art form than other types of writing, because authors really think stylistically about where they're placing different words and how they are delivering the words to their audience. So you'll see in this poem that Emily Dickinson is comparing hope to a thing with feathers, and that's a bird. So you'll see she capitalizes the word hope. She also capitalizes gale, which is a type of word, and bird. And that helps the reader see the connection between hope and birds. Alright, so word position is also another important factor in the graphical elements of poetry, so we're going to look into that. The way that the poet places words on a page is important in that it helps create or enhance the meaning of the poem. It lets the reader see the poem in a certain way. So it helps show the relationship between words and ideas within poetry. The flow of the words helps the author see the flow of the ideas that the poet's talking about, or even it might resemble the specific thing, an idea that the poet is speaking of. So it also helps show the different structures of poems, such as we have sonnets which follow a specific structure, and as we'll talk about in a minute, second, concrete poems. As you can see, this concrete poem is written so that it resembles a bird, and therefore the reader makes the connection between the poem, which is titled Bird, and that idea and topic, and sees the flow and the motion of the bird, which helps the reader get a better understanding of the poem. Alright, the other thing that we're going to talk about is punctuation. Punctuation in poetry has a similar purpose to prose, in that prose is regular text we are used to seeing in a form of sentences and paragraphs, but we have more freedom in poetry when we use punctuation. So punctuation helps us organize, group thoughts and ideas. It also helps in meaning. It helps the reader to avoid confusion, and then it signals when the reader should take a breath. So when a poet wants a poem to be read a certain way, they punctuate it so that readers pause and breathe. Sometimes punctuation is also omitted and deleted in a poem when a poem starts a new line. This is also to show the continuation of a thought and add a different rhythm or flow to the poem. Alright, so that's all about the graphical elements of poetry. Make sure you take good notes and you're ready to apply this in class.